The station hung in space like a giant metal flower, its petals stretching toward the distant stars. This was the Galactic Military Academy, the most famous training ground in the known universe. Every species that wanted to join the coalition sent their best warriors here. The station orbited a neutron star, and its walls were built from material stronger than anything found on most planets. Inside the main hall, 300 cadets stood in neat rows. They came from dozens of different worlds. Some were tall, some were short. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had skin that looked like living crystal. The air smelled different here because so many species breathed different things. Special filters kept everyone alive. Jiwon stood in the third row, her hands behind her back. She was human from Earth. Her black hair was tied back tight, and her uniform fit perfectly. She was not the tallest cadet here. She was not the strongest either. In fact, she looked small compared to most of the others. To her left stood a Krell warrior named Gorath. He was almost 3 meters tall, covered in thick gray scales that could stop a blade. His arms were as thick as tree trunks, and his eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. He looked down at Jiwon and made a sound like rocks grinding together. It was laughter. To her right was a Vex named Shimmer 3. The Vex were made of living crystal that changed colors when they thought. Shimmer 3 was currently pale blue, which meant curiosity. The Vex had no mouth, but they could speak by vibrating their crystal bodies. "The human looks fragile," Shimmer 3 said, the voice sounding like wind chimes. Behind Jiwon, 2 insectoid cadets from the planet Tick clicked their mandibles together. They were talking about her in their own language, but the translation device in Jiwon's ear made the words clear. "Humans have soft skin," one said. "No armor at all. Why are they here?" Jiwon said nothing. She kept her eyes forward, watching the stage at the front of the hall. Instructor Velmoth walked onto the stage. He was a Krell like Gorath, but older. Scars covered his scales, and one of his eyes had been replaced with a mechanical device that glowed red. He had trained warriors for 40 years. His voice was deep and rough like thunder. "Cadets," he began, "you are here because your species believes you are strong. You are here because you won fights on your homeworlds. You are here because you think you are warriors." He paused and looked across the assembled group. "Most of you will fail. Most of you will go home and never return. Only the best will graduate from this academy." The cadets stood straighter. No one wanted to be the one who failed. Velmoth touched a control panel and a hologram appeared behind him. It showed a planet covered in blue oceans and green land. "This is Earth," he said. "It is the newest member of the coalition. Humans have recently developed faster-than-light travel. They have asked to send cadets to this academy." Murmurs spread through the hall. Many of the cadets had never heard of Earth before. "Earth is a paradise world," Velmoth continued. "The gravity is low. The atmosphere is gentle. There are no major predators. The climate is comfortable. Humans evolved in peace and safety." He looked directly at where Jiwon and the other human cadets stood. "Unlike most species here, humans have no warrior caste. They have no biological weapons, no armor plating, no enhanced strength. They are, by all measurements, the weakest species ever admitted to this academy." Laughter erupted through the hall. Gorath laughed so hard his scales rattled. Shimmer 3 turned orange, which meant amusement. Even the instructors at the side of the room smiled. Jiwon's face did not change. She kept staring forward. Velmoth raised one massive hand and the laughter stopped. "I have a question," he said. "If Earth is so peaceful, if humans evolved without struggle, then why do they have warriors at all? Why do they think they can train alongside species that were born for combat?" The hall was silent now. Every eye turned toward the small group of human cadets. Jiwon stepped forward. The movement was quick and confident. She walked to the center of the aisle and looked up at Velmoth on his stage. "Permission to speak, instructor?" Velmoth's mechanical eye focused on her. "Granted. You asked why Earth breeds no warriors," Jiwon said. Her voice was calm and clear. It carried across the silent hall. "You're looking at one." The silence lasted for 3 seconds. Then the laughter came back, twice as loud as before. Gorath slapped his thigh with a sound like a hammer hitting stone. The tick behind her clicked so rapidly it sounded like machine gun fire. Even some of the instructors shook their heads. Velmoth did not laugh. He studied Jiwon with both his real eye and his mechanical one. "Bold words, Cadet Jiwon. We will see if you can back them up." He turned to address the entire hall again. "Tomorrow morning you will all participate in the Crucible Run. It is a 3-day endurance course across hostile terrain. You will face extreme temperatures, thin atmosphere, and automated defense systems. Many of you will not finish. Some of you may die. A chill went through the cadets. The Crucible Run was famous. It was the first major test, and it broke many warriors before they could even begin their real training. You will receive your equipment at dawn, Velmoth said. Dismissed. The cadets began to file out of the hall. As they walked, they talked about the Crucible Run. The Krell warriors boasted about their strength and stamina. The Vex calculated optimal routes and energy conservation. The Tick discussed their species' natural resistance to temperature extremes. Jiwan walked quietly toward the barracks. Another human cadet caught up with her. His name was Minho, and he had been selected for his exceptional reflexes and accuracy with weapons. That was quite a statement you made, he said, speaking in Korean so the others would not understand without their translators. It needed to be said. Jiwan replied in the same language. They all think we're jokes. Good. Let them think that. They reached the barracks, a long building with sleeping quarters for 200 cadets. Each species had different needs, so the rooms were all different sizes and temperatures. The human quarters were small but comfortable. As Jiwan prepared her bunk, she noticed Shimmer 3 in the doorway. The Vex had turned gray, which meant serious thought. I am assigned as your bunkmate, Shimmer 3 said. I requested a different assignment, but they are short on space. I don't mind, Jiwan said. Shimmer 3 entered the room and stood near the second bunk. The crystal being did not need to sleep like humans did, but they still needed rest periods. I have reviewed the data on humans, Shimmer 3 said. Your species has no advantages. Your skin tears easily. Your bones break with little force. You have one heart, one liver, one of every vital organ. You cannot survive in most environments without artificial protection. That's all true, Jiwan agreed. Then why are you here? Why do you think you can compete with species that evolved for war? Jiwan sat on her bunk and began checking her equipment for tomorrow. Because being weak made us strong, she said simply. Shimmer 3 turned purple, which meant confusion. That makes no logical sense. You'll see, Jiwan said. She lay back on her bunk and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be difficult. She needed to rest. As the lights in the barracks dimmed, Shimmer 3 stood motionless, processing the human's words. Outside, the neutron star spun, and the station continued its endless orbit. 300 cadets prepared for the trial ahead, but only one species had evolved by simply refusing to give up, no matter what stood in their way. Tomorrow, the galaxy would begin to learn what that really meant. The transport ship descended through thick clouds toward the surface of Krath 7. The planet was chosen specifically because it killed the weak. Jiwan sat strapped into her harness, feeling the ship shake as it fought against the heavy atmosphere. Around her, other cadets checked their equipment one last time. The gravity on Krath 7 was 1.7 times Earth standard. The atmosphere contained just enough oxygen to breathe, but it was also full of sulfur compounds that burned the throat. The temperature swung from freezing cold at night to burning hot during the day. Sharp rocks covered the landscape and the wind never stopped blowing. Remember, Instructor Velmoth's voice came through their communication devices. You must reach 3 checkpoints over 3 days. The first checkpoint is 50 kilometers north. The second is 40 kilometers east. The third is 60 kilometers south. Total distance, 150 kilometers through hostile terrain. Your suit has basic life support and a distress beacon. If you activate the beacon, a ship will rescue you, but you will fail the trial. Questions? No one spoke. Good. Begin. The transport's door opened and Jiwan felt the wind immediately. It was like being slapped by an invisible hand. She stepped out onto the rocky ground and nearly fell as the extra gravity pulled at her. Her legs felt heavy, like someone had tied weights to them. Around her, the other cadets spread out. Gorath and the other Krell warriors charged forward with huge strides. Their thick legs and powerful muscles made the extra gravity almost nothing to them. The Vex moved more carefully, calculating each step, but they also moved fast. The Ticks scurried across the rocks on their 6 legs, barely slowed at all. Jiwan started walking. Not running, just walking. She kept her breathing steady and her pace even. Another human cadet, a woman named Yuna, fell in beside her. Yuna was shorter than Jiwan but had incredible endurance. She had run ultramarathons on Earth. They're already far ahead, Yuna said, watching the Krell disappear over a ridge. They'll slow down, Jiwan replied. The first hour was hard. Jiwan's legs burned from the extra gravity. Her lungs worked overtime, pulling oxygen from the thin, sulfur-tainted air. Sweat soaked her uniform, but the suit's cooling system kept her body temperature stable. She focused on putting one foot in front of the other. That was all. Just keep moving. By the third hour, they passed the first fallen cadet. It was one of the tiki. The insectoid sat on a rock, breathing hard through its spiracles. Its translator said, "Temperature regulation failure. Cannot continue." A rescue ship was already descending to pick it up. By the sixth hour, the landscape changed. The rocks became taller, forming a maze of stone passages. The suit's navigation system showed the correct direction, but the path was not straight. They had to climb over boulders and squeeze through narrow gaps. Jiwan kept her pace steady. She had learned this from her grandmother, who had been a marathon runner. "Don't race the course," her grandmother had said. "Race yourself. Keep a pace you can hold forever." The sun reached its highest point and the temperature soared. Jiwan's suit showed 45 degrees Celsius outside. The rocks reflected heat like mirrors. Some cadets ahead had stopped in the shade to rest, waiting for the temperature to drop. Jiwan did not stop. She drank water from her suit's reservoir and kept walking. The heat made her dizzy, but she focused on her breathing. In, out, in, out. Step, step, step. Yuna stayed with her. Neither of them spoke much. They saved their energy for moving. By the 10th hour, they passed more fallen cadets. A Vex had developed cracks in its crystal structure from the temperature stress. 2 Krell warriors sat exhausted, their bodies overheated despite their natural toughness. The problem with being big and strong was that big bodies generated a lot of heat, and on Krath 7 there was no way to cool down quickly. The sun began to set, and the temperature dropped fast. Within an hour it went from 45 degrees to 0. Frost formed on the rocks. Jiwan's breath became visible mist. Her suit heated up to keep her warm, using precious battery power. They reached the first checkpoint at hour 14. It was a small shelter with supplies and a medical station. 30 cadets were already there, resting. They looked at Jiwan and Yuna with surprise. 2 humans among the first to arrive. Gorith was there, lying on a bench. His scales were pale from exhaustion. "How?" he asked when he saw them. "How are you here already?" Jiwan did not answer. She refilled her water supply, ate a nutrition bar, and checked her suit systems. Yuna did the same. They rested for 30 minutes, then stood to leave. "You're leaving already?" Shimmer 3 asked. The Vex was a dull gray color, indicating fatigue. "The next checkpoint is 40 kilometers away. Most cadets will rest here until morning." "We keep our pace," Jiwan said simply. She and Yuna walked back out into the cold night. The night was harder than the day. The darkness was complete except for the light from their suits. The temperature continued to drop until Jiwan's suit showed -20 degrees. Her legs felt like wood, stiff and awkward. But she kept moving. By hour 20, they had covered another 15 kilometers. They passed more cadets struggling in the dark. Some had stopped completely, too exhausted to continue. Their lights dotted the landscape like sad stars. Hour 30 brought the dawn of the second day. Jiwan's entire body ached. Her feet had blisters. Her legs trembled with each step. She had not slept in over a day, but she kept moving. Yuna fell behind during hour 32. "Go ahead," she said. "I need to slow down." "We stay together," Jiwan said. "Don't be stupid. You can finish faster without me." "We stay together," Jiwan repeated firmly. They continued side by side, their pace slower now but still steady. The second checkpoint appeared at hour 38. Fewer cadets were there, maybe 20. They all looked exhausted. Many were sleeping. Jiwan and Yuna rested for an hour this time. They ate, drank, and checked their suits. Jiwan allowed herself to close her eyes for 40 minutes. It was not real sleep, just rest. When they stood to leave, only 5 other cadets got up with them. The rest were too tired to continue yet. The path to the third checkpoint was the hardest. The terrain became mountainous. They had to climb steep slopes covered in loose rocks. Every step up required fighting against the heavy gravity. Jiwan's muscles screamed. Her hands bled from gripping sharp stones. But she climbed. Hour 45 brought disaster. A rock slide started above them. Someone had dislodged a boulder, and it triggered a chain reaction. Rocks tumbled down the slope, crashing and bouncing. Jiwan heard screaming. She climbed toward the sound and found 3 cadets trapped. A Krell warrior, a Vex, and a small winged creature from a species called the Flit. A large boulder had pinned the Flit's wing. The other 2 were trying to move it, but failing. "Help us!" the Krell shouted when he saw Jiwan. Jiwan looked at the boulder. It must have weighed 300 kilograms, maybe more. In Earth gravity, she might have been able to move it with help. Here, with the extra gravity, it was impossible. She examined the situation more carefully. The boulder rested on two smaller rocks. If she could move those— "Stop trying to lift it," she said. "We dig under it." For the next 2 hours, Jiwan and the others dug around the smaller rocks, removing stone and dirt. Jiwan's hands bled worse. Her arms felt like they were on fire. But slowly they created space. Finally, they could roll the boulder just enough for the flit to pull its wing free. "Thank you," the flit said. "Its wing was damaged but not broken. You saved me." The Krell warrior stared at Jiwan. This was Gorath, the one who had laughed at her in the assembly hall. "Why did you help?" he asked. "We are competing. You wasted hours here. Others have surely passed us." "You needed help," Jiwan said simply. She checked her navigation system. "The final checkpoint is 30 kilometers south. Can you all move?" They could, so they moved together as a group now. 6 cadets helping each other through the last leg of the course. The Krell warriors used their strength to clear paths. The Vex calculated the best routes. The flit, despite its injury, scouted ahead from low altitude. And Jiwan set the pace steady and unbreakable. They reached the 3rd checkpoint at hour 68. Many cadets were already there, but not as many as Jiwan expected. Out of 300 who started, only 73 finished. Most had activated their distress beacons and quit. Instructor Velmoth stood at the checkpoint, monitoring arrivals on a data pad. He looked up when Jiwan's group arrived. His mechanical eye focused on her, scanning. "Cadet Jiwan," he said, "you are the 14th to finish. Your time is better than 80% of cadets, but you spent 2 hours helping other competitors." "Why?" Jiwan stood straight despite her exhaustion. "Because that's what warriors do, instructor. We don't leave people behind." Velmoth's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. He looked down at his datapad, then back at Jiwan. "Your vitals are interesting," he said. "Your stress hormones are elevated. Your muscles show significant damage. You have not slept properly in 3 days, yet your determination markers are still high. You could continue if needed." "Yes, instructor." "Rest, cadet. You have earned it." Velmoth paused. "All of you have." Jiwan found a place to sit. Her body wanted to collapse, but she remained controlled. She drank water slowly and ate another nutrition bar. Una sat beside her, equally exhausted but smiling slightly. Gorath approached them. The massive Krell warrior stood over them, his shadow block. The combat training hall was a massive sphere, 50 meters across. Its walls could shift and change, creating any environment needed for training. Today it was configured for zero-gravity combat. Magnetic platforms floated in the empty space, providing places to push off from, but nothing to stand on. Cadets had to fight while floating, using only their momentum and the occasional platform to move. Jiwan floated near one of the platforms, adjusting to the strange sensation of weightlessness. Around her, other cadets practiced their movements. The Krell warriors struggled. They were built for strength, not grace, and in zero gravity their mass became a problem. Once they started moving in one direction, it was hard to stop or change course. The Vex did better. Their crystalline bodies were lighter, and they could calculate trajectories easily. They moved through the space like dancers, precise and controlled. The flit were the best. They had wings designed for flight, and while the wings did not work in vacuum, the instincts remained. They understood three-dimensional movement naturally. Combat positions. Instructor Velmoth's voice echoed through the hall. He floated near the ceiling, watching everything. His mechanical eye tracked each cadet's movement. "Today you will fight one-on-one matches. The rules are simple. Touch your opponent 3 times on their center mass to win. You may use the training weapons or your natural abilities. Lethal force is forbidden. Serious injury will result in disqualification." Holographic brackets appeared in the air, showing the tournament structure. Jiwan saw her name paired against a Krell warrior named Dohan. She had seen Dohan during the Crucible run. He had been one of the first to finish, and he had not needed to rest as long as the others. He was strong even by Krell standards. The first matches began. Jiwan watched carefully, learning. The Krell warriors tried to use their strength, launching themselves like missiles at their opponents. Sometimes it worked, but often they missed and went spinning out of control. The Vex used precision, waiting for perfect moments to strike. The flit used speed, darting in and out before opponents could react. "Cadet Jiwon, you are next," Velmoth announced. Jiwon pushed off from her platform and floated to the center of the sphere. Dohan was already there, his massive form rotating slowly. He was nearly 3 times her size. His scales were dark red, almost black. His eyes glowed amber. "I will try not to hurt you, human," Dohan said through his translator. "You are brave to face me." Jiwon said nothing. She positioned herself carefully, feet against a nearby platform, ready to push off. "Begin." Dohan launched himself immediately, arms outstretched. He moved fast for something so large, closing the distance in seconds. Jiwon pushed off at an angle, spinning her body. Dohan's clawed hand passed centimeters from her shoulder. The problem with moving fast in zero gravity was stopping. Dohan crashed into a platform on the far side of the sphere. He grabbed it and pulled himself around, his face showing frustration. Jiwon had landed lightly on another platform. She watched Dohan, calculating. He would come again, probably faster. She waited. Dohan pushed off harder this time. He came like a meteor, spinning to spread his arms wide, trying to catch her no matter which way she dodged. Jiwon did not dodge. She pushed off to meet him head-on. At the last second, she twisted her body, extended one leg, and planted her foot against Dohan's chest. She used his own momentum to push herself away while stopping him cold. Her hand touched his center mass as she passed. "Contact 1, Cadet Jiwon," Velmoth announced. Dohan spun in the air, disoriented. How had something so small stopped him? He grabbed a platform and steadied himself, breathing hard. Jiwon had already positioned herself at another platform. She looked calm, focused. The match continued. Dohan tried different approaches. He tried being slower and more careful, but Jiwon evaded easily. He tried feinting in one direction and going another, but Jiwon read his movements. Each time she used his own force against him. She was like water flowing around obstacles, never meeting force with force. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Dohan was breathing hard now. Zero gravity was exhausting for heavy species. Every movement required strength, and his body mass meant he had to work much harder than lighter opponents to change direction. Jiwon touched him a second time at the 25-minute mark. She had waited for him to make a mistake, to push off a little too hard. When he went spinning past a platform, unable to reach it, she was there. Her hand touched his center mass, gentle as a feather. "Contact 2, Cadet Jiwon." Dohan roared in frustration. Sweat dripped from his scales, floating away in tiny droplets. His movements became wilder, less controlled. He was getting angry, and angry fighters made mistakes. Jiwon remained patient. She had all day. Her body was light, her movements efficient. She was barely tired while Dohan was exhausting himself. At the 40-minute mark, Dohan made his final mistake. He pushed off with all his strength, trying to grab Jiwon in a bear hug that would end the match. Jiwon simply curled into a ball and let him pass over her. As he went by, she uncurled and touched his center mass for the 3rd time. Match complete. Winner Cadet Jiwon. The hall was silent. Every cadet had stopped practicing to watch. A human had defeated a Krell warrior, not through strength or special abilities, but through patience and endurance. Dohan floated nearby, breathing so hard his whole body shook. "How?" he asked. "I am stronger. I am faster. How did you win?" "You are stronger," Jiwon agreed. "You are faster, but I can last longer." Velmoth floated down to their level. His mechanical eye scanned both fighters. "Cadet Dohan, your technique is excellent, but you exhausted yourself. Your species has tremendous power but limited endurance. Cadet Jiwon used this against you." He turned to Jiwon. "Interesting strategy. Where did you learn it?" "It is how humans hunt, instructor," Jiwon said. "On Earth, before we had weapons, we chased animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting." "Persistence hunting," Velmoth repeated. He made a note on his datapad. "Continue with the matches." Over the next hours, more humans fought. Minho faced a Vex and won by constantly moving, never allowing the Vex to complete its calculations before the situation changed. Yuna fought a Flit and won by simply outlasting it. The Flit was fast but tired quickly. A pattern emerged. Humans did not win through superior strength or speed. They won through endurance and adaptation. They could keep fighting long after other species had exhausted themselves. That evening, in the cadet common area, the atmosphere had changed. The aliens no longer laughed at the humans. Instead, they watched them with something like respect, mixed with confusion. Shimmer 3 approached Jiwon's table. where she sat with Minho and Yuna. The Vex's color was deep purple, indicating intense thought. "I have been researching your species," Shimmer 3 said. "I do not understand what I am finding." "What do you mean?" Minho asked. "Your planet is listed as a paradise world. Low gravity, comfortable atmosphere, stable climate. Yet your species shows adaptations for extreme endurance. Your cooling system is the most efficient of any species on record. Your cardiovascular system is overdeveloped. Your mental resistance to fatigue is exceptional. These are traits of species from death worlds, not paradise worlds." Jiwan and the others exchanged looks. "Earth is beautiful," Jiwan said slowly. "But it was not always easy. We evolved during ice ages. We had to walk huge distances to find food. We competed with predators that were bigger and stronger than us. We survived by being able to keep going when everything else had to stop. But that was millions of years ago," Shimmer 3 said. "Why do you still have these traits?" "Because we never stopped testing ourselves," Yuna answered. "We climbed mountains because they were there. We ran marathons for fun. We crossed oceans in small boats. We went to places that tried to kill us just to see if we could survive." Shimmer 3 turned orange briefly, then back to purple. "Your species seeks out difficulty intentionally? For no practical reason?" "Yes," Minho said, smiling slightly. "We do." Gorath had been listening from a nearby table. The big Krell warrior stood and walked over. His scales had returned to their normal gray color after his rest. "I begin to understand," he said. "My species is strong because our world made us strong. We had no choice. But your species chose to be strong even when you did not have to be." "Something like that," Jiwan agreed. "That is..." Gorath searched for words. "That is frightening. What kind of species deliberately makes life harder for itself?" "Warriors," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Instructor Velmoth standing in the doorway. He walked into the common area, and cadets quickly made space. "I have been researching Earth's history," he continued. "I wanted to understand how a paradise world could produce cadets who compete with species bred for war." He activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Images appeared. Humans running across vast plains under a hot sun. Humans climbing frozen mountains. Humans crossing burning deserts. Humans diving into deep oceans. Humans walking on the moon. "Your species does not have claws or armor or venom," Velmoth said. "You have something more dangerous. You have the ability to decide that you will not stop no matter what. Your body's adapted to support this mental trait. High endurance, efficient cooling, strong will. You are persistu." The strategic war game began at exactly 600 hours. All remaining cadets, now numbering just over 200 after various trials had eliminated the weakest, gathered in the main simulation chamber. The room was the size of a sports stadium, filled with holographic projectors and neural interface stations. Instructor Velmoth stood on a raised platform, flanked by other instructors from various species. "This trial will test your ability to function under extreme fatigue," he announced. "You will defend a simulated colony from waves of enemy attacks. The simulation runs for 7 days continuously. You may rotate rest periods with your team, but the attacks will never stop. Your enemies will learn from your tactics and adapt. Communication is key. Leadership is essential. Endurance is everything." The holographic display behind him showed a planetary settlement, domed habitats, power generators, defensive turrets, and supply depots. "You will be divided into mixed species teams of 10. Each team defends one colony. The colony that survives longest with the most resources intact wins. If your colony is destroyed, your team is eliminated." Jiwan found herself assigned to Team 7, along with Minho and Yuna, which gave them 3 humans. The rest of the team consisted of Gorath and another Krell warrior named Vesh, Shimmer 3 and a Vex named Pattern 9, 2 Tick named Clicker and Razor, and 1 Flit named Whisper. They gathered around their assigned command station. 10 neural interface helmets waited for them, each one calibrated to the wearer's species. The helmets would link them directly to the simulation, making it feel completely real. Pain would be simulated, but not actual. Exhaustion, however, would be very real. "We need a leader," Gorath said, looking around the group. "Someone to make final decisions." "Jiwan should lead," Minho said immediately. Several team members looked surprised. "A human?" Vesh asked. The Krell warrior was smaller than Gorath, but still massive compared to Jiwan. "No offense, but humans are new to the coalition. You have no military tradition like we do. We can vote, Jiwan suggested. Everyone who wants to lead, raise your hand. Only 2 hands went up, Vesh and Pattern 9. The Vex explained its logic. I can calculate optimal strategies faster than biological species. My decision-making is superior. True, Jiwan said. But can you understand biological limitations? Can you know when someone is about to break? Pattern 9 turned gray. I had not considered that variable. I vote for Jiwan, Shimmer 3 said, surprising everyone. I have observed her for weeks now. She understands endurance better than any species I have studied. One by one, the others agreed. Even Vesh nodded reluctantly. Very well. But if you fail, human, I will challenge your leadership. Fair enough, Jiwan said. Now put on your helmets. Let's see what we're dealing with. The simulation began with a flash of light. Suddenly, Jiwan was standing inside the colony. It was so realistic she could feel the artificial gravity, smell the recycled air, hear the hum of generators. Her team members appeared around her, each looking startled by the realism. Defensive positions, Jiwan called. Gorath, Vesh, you're on the north and south turrets. Your strength will help with the heavy weapons. Clicker and Razor, you take east and west lookout positions. Your multiple eyes will spot threats faster. Whisper, you're on aerial reconnaissance. Minho, you're our sniper. Find a high position with good coverage. Yuna, you're with me at command. We'll coordinate everything. Shimmer 3 and Pattern 9. You handle logistics and resource management. The team moved quickly to their positions. Within minutes, the first enemy wave appeared on sensors. Simulated hostile forces approached from the north. Ground vehicles and infantry units. Contact north, 30 enemies, Gorath reported from his turret. Requesting permission to engage. Granted. Conserve ammunition. Controlled bursts only. The battle began. Gorath's turret roared to life, sending streams of simulated plasma bolts toward the approaching enemy. Minho fired precisely from his sniper position, each shot finding a target. The enemy wave broke against their defenses and retreated. First wave complete, Yuna reported. Ammunition used 12%. No damage to colony structures. No casualties. Good, Jiwan said. Next wave will be harder. Shimmer 3, what's our resource status? All systems optimal, the Vex replied. We can sustain this level of combat for approximately 48 hours before requiring resupply. The simulation continued. Waves of enemies attacked from different directions, sometimes simultaneously. Jiwan directed her team calmly, moving defenders where they were needed, authorizing ammunition use carefully, ordering repairs to damaged systems. 6 hours into the simulation, Pattern 9 asked for a rest period. My processing efficiency has dropped by 15%. I require a recharge cycle. Approved. 2-hour rest. Shimmer 3 can handle logistics alone for now. 8 hours in, Vesh showed signs of fatigue. The Krell's reaction time had slowed noticeably. Vesh, rotate out. Sleep for 3 hours. I can continue, Vesh protested. That's an order. You're more valuable to us rested. By the 12-hour mark, Jiwan had implemented a rotation system. Everyone got rest periods, but she staggered them so the colony was never undermanned. The humans took shorter rest periods than the others, usually 2 to 3 hours instead of 4 or 5. On the second day, the attacks intensified. Enemy forces now included air support and heavier weapons. The colony's shields took damage. A power generator went offline, requiring repairs. I need someone to go outside and fix Generator 3, Jiwan said. It's under fire. Dangerous work. I'll go. Minho volunteered immediately. Take Clicker with you for cover. Jiwan switched to a different channel. Gorath, Whisper, cover the repair team. Keep enemy fire off them. The repair mission took 30 minutes of intense combat. Minho worked on the generator while Clicker and the others fought off attackers. Generator 3 came back online just as its backup power died. Good work, everyone, Jiwan said. Rest rotation continues. Day 3 brought a new challenge. The simulation introduced sleep deprivation effects. Cadets who did not rest enough began making mistakes. Their reaction times slowed. Their aim worsened. Some started hallucinating. Team 7 had an advantage. G1 had enforced strict rest periods from the start, while other teams had allowed their members to skip sleep to seem tough. Team 7 had rested properly. Now on day 3, they were still sharp while others were falling apart. G1 monitored everyone carefully. She noticed when Gorath's aim became less accurate and immediately rotated him out for rest. She saw when Whisper started flying erratic patterns and ordered the flit to sleep. She pushed her team to rest even when they protested. By day 4, teams were beginning to fail. Team 3's colony was destroyed when their exhausted defenders fell asleep at their posts. Team 5 surrendered when their leader had a mental breakdown from stress. Team 7 kept fighting. Ji-won had barely slept herself, maybe 6 hours total over 4 days, but she remained focused. Yuna was the same. They monitored everything: ammunition levels, power reserves, shield strength, team member fatigue. "How are you doing this?" Shimmer 3 asked during a brief calm period. The Vex's crystals were dull from exhaustion. "You have been awake for 18 of the last 24 hours. Your cognitive function should be severely impaired. Humans can function on very little sleep for extended periods," Ji-won explained. "It's uncomfortable, but we can do it. Something about our evolution. We needed to stay alert for days at a time. Day 5 was chaos. Only 6 teams remained functional. The simulation intensified the attacks, throwing everything at the survivors. Heavy armor, airstrikes, artillery, even simulated nuclear weapons. Colonies fell one by one. Team 7 adapted. When artillery started hitting them, Ji-won ordered everyone into underground bunkers and fought defensively. When airstrikes came, they powered down non-essential systems to make themselves look abandoned. When ground forces attacked, they waited until the enemy was close, then ambushed them from hidden positions. "Your tactics are unconventional," Pattern 9 observed. The Vex's processing was slow from exhaustion, but it was still functional. "You do not fight honorably." "We fight to survive," Ji-won corrected. "There's no honor in getting your team killed." On day 6, only 3 teams remained. Team 7, Team 1 led by a veteran Krell instructor, and Team 4 led by a brilliant Vex strategist. All 3 colonies were damaged, running low on resources and staffed by exhausted cadets who could barely stand. Minho had been awake for 30 hours straight, holding his sniper position. His eyes were red, his hands shaking, but every shot still hit its target. "I can keep going," he insisted when Ji-won ordered him to rest. "I know you can, but you'll do better with 2 hours of sleep. Yuna can cover your position." "I'll sleep when I'm dead," Minho joked, but he was swaying on his feet. "Sleep now. Or I'll have Gorath carry you to a bunk." Minho finally agreed and stumbled off to rest. Ji-won watched him go, then turned back to the command console. The simulation showed another massive wave building. This would be the final assault, she was certain. Everything the enemy had, thrown at the 3 remaining colonies simultaneously. "Everyone listen up," Ji-won broadcast to her entire team. "Big wave incoming, probably the last one. This is what we trained for. We don't need to kill every enemy. We just need to outlast them. Conserve ammunition. Protect critical systems. If something breaks, let it break unless it's essential." Focus on 6 months had passed since the final trial. The station's Great Hall was decorated with banners from every coalition species, each one representing thousands of years of military tradition. Today was graduation day, and the hall was packed with dignitaries, military leaders, and families who had traveled from distant worlds to watch their warriors receive their honors. Of the 300 cadets who had started, only 98 remained to graduate. The trials had been harder than any previous year, and Instructor Velmoth had explained why. "The coalition faces new threats. We needed to know who would stand firm when everything went wrong. Now we know." Ji-won stood in formation with her fellow graduates wearing her dress uniform. The human uniform was simpler than most, without the elaborate armor pieces or ceremonial weapons that other species wore. Next to her stood Minho, Yuna, and the other human graduates. Behind them were Gorath, Shimmer 3, and the rest of Team 7. They had requested to stand together, and their request had been granted. The ceremony began with traditional music from various worlds, a complex harmony that somehow worked despite being created by species with completely different concepts of sound. Admiral Kreshtar, the supreme commander of coalition forces, stood at the podium. He was an old Krell. His scales turned pale gray with age, but his eyes were still sharp. "Cadets," his voice boomed across the hall. "You have completed the most difficult training in the known galaxy. You have proven yourselves worthy of defending the coalition. But more than that, you have learned something that many soldiers never understand. Strength comes in many forms." He gestured toward the formation, and holographic displays appeared above the cadets showing highlights from their training: the Crucible Run, the zero-gravity combat, the strategic war game. Images of cadets pushing themselves beyond what should have been possible. This year's class is special, Admiral Kreshitar continued. For the first time we have human graduates. The displays focused on Jiwon, Minho, and Yuna. When humans first applied to the academy, many questioned the decision. How could species from a paradise world compete with warriors bred for combat? The hall was completely silent now. Every eye was on the human cadets. We were wrong to question, the Admiral said bluntly. We measured humans by our own standards and found them wanting. We looked for claws and found only soft skin. We looked for armor and found only flesh. We looked for biological weapons and found none. We concluded they were weak. He paused. We were fools. A murmur went through the crowd. Humans have something we did not account for, the Admiral continued. They have endurance that defies logic. They have determination that borders on insanity. They have the ability to continue fighting long after any reasonable being would surrender. This is not a biological advantage they evolved randomly. This is something they cultivated deliberately, generation after generation for millions of years. The displays changed, showing Earth's history. Humans walking across continents, climbing mountains, crossing oceans, exploring frozen wastelands and burning deserts. Then it showed human wars. Conflicts that lasted years, decades, even centuries. Battles fought until both sides were exhausted, then fought some more. Earth may look like paradise, Admiral Kreshitar said, but it bred a species that treats paradise as a starting point. Humans deliberately seek out hardship. They climb mountains because they are there. They run until their bodies break, then heal and run further. They fight until victory or death, and they do not recognize anything in between. He looked directly at Jiwon. Cadet Jiwon. Step forward. Jiwon marched to the podium, her movements crisp and precise despite the nervousness she felt. The Admiral towered over her as most species did, but she stood straight and met his gaze. You spoke words on your first day that some thought were arrogance, the Admiral said. When asked why Earth breeds no warriors, you said we were looking at one. Explain what you meant. Jiwon had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, she found herself speaking from the heart instead of from her prepared speech. Instructor Velmoth asked why Earth has no warrior caste, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. The truth is, we don't need a warrior caste. Every human is a warrior, not because we are born stronger or faster, but because we choose to be. She gestured at the other human graduates. We come from a world that could have made us soft. Our climate is gentle. Our gravity is low. Our atmosphere is rich. But we looked at that comfortable world and decided it wasn't enough. We wanted to test ourselves. We wanted to see how far we could go, how much we could endure, how long we could last. The displays behind her showed more images. Human athletes pushing their limits, scientists working in dangerous conditions, explorers venturing into the unknown, soldiers fighting impossible battles. Every human carries this inside them, Jiwon continued, the will to keep going, the refusal to give up. We don't have the best weapons or the strongest bodies, but we have something that cannot be taken away or defeated. We simply will not stop. And that makes us all warriors, every single one of us. She saluted the Admiral and returned to formation. The hall remained silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. But it was different from the applause after the final trial. This was slower, more thoughtful, mixed with something that might have been respect or might have been concern. The ceremony continued. Each graduate was called forward to receive their commission. Jiwon received the rank of lieutenant, as did all the cadets. But she also received a special commendation for leadership during the strategic war game, as did Minho for combat excellence, and Yuna for tactical coordination. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The valedictorian speech. The honor went to the cadet with the highest overall marks across all trials and academic courses. This year, that cadet was Hyunsu, a human who had barely been noticed during training because he was quiet and unassuming. But his test scores were perfect. His tactical analyses were brilliant, and his performance in every trial had been flawless. Hyunsu walked to the podium. He was average height for a human, with short black hair and glasses that he wore despite having perfect vision because they helped him think. He adjusted the microphone, looked out at the assembled crowd of alien species and human families, and began to speak. "Thank you for this honor," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I want to talk about what I learned here, and what I think the Coalition needs to understand about humanity. The hall waited. Humans are good at war, Hyunsu said simply. Not because we love violence, but because we have practiced it for our entire history. We have been fighting since before we had language. We fought with rocks and sticks, then with bronze and iron, then with gunpowder and nuclear weapons. We fought over territory, resources, ideals, and sometimes just because we were angry. His tone remained conversational, but his words carried weight. We fought ourselves for thousands of years. Humans killing humans, developing better weapons, better tactics, better strategies. We learned every possible way to hurt each other, and we wrote it all down so the next generation could learn from our mistakes and find even better ways. Some of the alien dignitaries shifted uncomfortably. I am not saying this to boast, Hyunsu continued. I am saying this as a warning. The coalition should understand what it means to have humans as allies. He paused. It means you have allies who know how to fight any kind of war. Conventional warfare, guerrilla warfare, cyber warfare, psychological warfare, economic warfare. We have practiced all of it on each other. The displays behind him showed human military history, but not glorified. It showed the reality, the destruction, the casualties, the horror of what humans had done to each other over the centuries. More importantly, Hyunsu said, you have allies who understand attrition. Most species fight until they lose too many warriors, then surrender. It makes sense. Preserve the species. Live to fight another day. But humans? He shook his head. Humans fight until we win or until we are extinct. We do not have a concept of acceptable losses. We have a concept of necessary sacrifice. The hall was absolutely silent now. During my research here, I studied coalition military history, Hyunsu continued. I learned about wars between species, how they start and how they end. Most wars in coalition history end when one side loses 30 to 40% of their military forces. They surrender, negotiate peace, accept terms. This makes logical sense. But in human history, we have examples of wars where populations fought until 90% casualties, cities that held out until everyone was dead, countries that mobilized every citizen, including children, to keep fighting. Admiral Kreshitar leaned forward, listening intently. I tell you this not to frighten you, Hyunsu said, but to help you understand why peace with humanity is important. Yes, we will be good allies. Yes, we will fight beside you against your enemies. Yes, we will endure when others fall. But if the coalition ever makes humanity its enemy, he let the sentence hang for a moment. Please don't, because we will not surrender at 30% casualties. We will not negotiate at 50%. We will keep fighting with whatever we have left until one side is completely gone. He looked around.